Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Trying to hit 50k subscribers on this channel, so that subscription would be much appreciated. Today I saw a tweet. I went on NBA Twitter for the first time in over a week from being on vacation, and I immediately saw something that just annoyed me. What do you know? I'm probably going to try and make my approach for the next upcoming season, including not factoring in Twitter into my consumption of the game, but hey, it's the off season. I don't go on Twitter anymore nearly to the degree that I used to. Very occasionally stop in, get my few thousand likes on a great post because I'm so based, and then I move on with my day. This post, I'm not going to give you their and I did quote tweet them. I would appreciate it if you did not go out of your way to harass them. I don't want to cause drama. I don't want to give this person a bunch of unwanted attention. I will, however, talk about their take because man, did it piss me off. This is about Chris Bosh, where the tweet says, in Bosh's last year in Toronto, he took 22 three-point attempts. In Bosh's last year playing with LeBron, he took 218 three-point attempts. LeBron's heliocentric, keep the box clear so I can drive offense turned a great post player into a houseplant on the perimeter. So my quote tweet for this was, there are so many things wrong with this. It's dumb in so many ways that I don't even know where to start. Well, let's get into the multitude of ways. So first of all, Chris Bosh was a third option, and he signed up for playing with the Miami Heat knowing full well that he was the third option. And you don't get to be a third option post-up player. Not really. Even back then, you don't really get such a thing because that's a first option, second option type of offensive play. If you're a third option on a team, you're pretty much always going to be a floor spacer in some capacity or another. Now, when Bosh joined the Miami Heat, he didn't take that many three-pointers, and in fact, it was also not LeBron's idea to make Bosh play that way. It was Eric Spoelstra's idea. After their loss in 2011, he realized that sliding Bosh down to the 5, LeBron to the 4, and getting another shooter on the floor would be the most ideal way to make the team work. A part of that was also Bosh shooting more and more three-pointers, specifically corner three-pointers, and turns out he was really good at them. And he also shot them in college. He took about one a game in college and shot like 50% on them. Not crazy volume, but it was something that was a part of his game, and he still notably took far more shots inside the arc than he ever did outside of it. In fact, I will just look up the specifics real quick. Okay, in Chris's last season with the Miami Heat, he took 218 three-pointers, and he took 735 two-pointers. That is not an insane ratio at all. Like, at all. Also, for 3 years before this, literally he highlighted the last season because it's the first time that Bosh even took over 100 three-pointers in a season. Over the course of his first 3 seasons with LeBron, he took 134 three-pointers and 2,636 two-pointers. So there's another illustration of how stupid this is. Chris Bosh primarily took mid-range shots and dunks. He always had a mid-range jumper. In fact, in the clip that is cited here, Chris Bosh isn't scoring out of the post so much as he's scoring out of the face-up. He's facing up his defender, doing some jab steps, and then either driving or shooting a mid-range shot. And guess what? He did that plenty when he was in Miami. He just took less field goals overall because he was a third option, and he slightly optimized his game to post up less and turn some of his longer twos into three-pointers. That's not a reflection of Chris Bosh fundamentally changing his game in some dramatic way. He made an adjustment to accommodate from going from a first option to a third option, and that's what you're supposed to do. Because guess what? When Chris Bosh was the first option on the Toronto Raptors, while I wouldn't blame him, a lot of it was also just that the team around him sucked, they weren't good. They were not good with him as a first option. In fact, they were pretty fucking bad more often than not. They weren't even a particularly good offense. So to highlight this as a way to criticize LeBron, that's the part of it that's whack to me, because I'm in agreement that Chris Bosh deserves more credit and just overall highlighting of his Toronto Raptors days, because I really loved his game. I love a big man that can shoot in the mid-range, and I loved it being at a higher volume, especially out of the face-up. Like, that shit's just cool. I'm looking at these highlights as we speak, and they're really dope highlights. Very few of them are actual traditional post-ups. Almost all of them are face-ups, and all of those plays were still very present in Chris Bosh's shot diet when he played alongside LeBron James. And something that's also noteworthy is that he took more three-pointers. Well, not more. Well, he played less games, but more three-pointers per game after LeBron left. So LeBron leaves 2014, and Bosh is taking 2.8 three-pointers per game. For his final 2 seasons in Miami, where he played 97 games, he was taking 4 three-pointers per game. That aspect of his game, part of it's just that he got more shots, so like I think his three-point tendency wasn't like increased that dramatically from what it was. He just had a bigger role on the offensive end, so he got back to the 20 point per game territory. But what Chris Bosh did in Miami was he sacrificed some of his touches. He changed a little bit of the shots that he took. Again, the first 3 seasons, it's like 200 threes to whatever 1,000 2-pointers. It's not that big of an adjustment at all, other than a reduced amount of field goals. When he left Toronto for Miami, he took 3 less shots per game. Nothing even that dramatic, but enough to get him to more 16 to 18 point per game territory. But what also happened is he had more energy and effort to put into the defensive end of the floor, and I think Chris Bosh became a more complete player. And I see this idea for players who play with LeBron, but just players in general, they're like, oh, what did they do to this poor guy? When it's like, he took 3 less shots per game in exchange for playing with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and he got 2 championships out of it, something that was never going to happen in Toronto. Do you think Chris Bosh is crying over the loss of 4 points per game? Like, it's really not that big of a fucking deal. And the same thing for Kevin Love. Like, I think Kevin Love was a far worse fit for LeBron's team, not because he couldn't reduce his offensive output in a way that was effective, but because he could not do that and then contribute on the other end of the floor. He went from 26 points per game in his last year in Minnesota, and the season before that, he got hurt, but the season before that, he averaged 26 again, to like 16 to 18. He averaged 17 over the 4 years that LeBron was there. Like, that was a mistake because Kevin Love, the offense worked, but the amount that you were paying for him relative to the fact that he was also a poor defender just made it not really worth it, made the fit kind of awkward as a whole. But Chris Bosh was able to optimize his game to be the most effective. The best version of players is not when they're taking the most shots. Chris Bosh was a far more effective winner in Miami because he was able to provide consistently good third option offense that did not interfere with how LeBron and Dwayne Wade played. And then he was able to be oftentimes the best defender on that team, depending on how much LeBron was trying that day. I would say throughout his tenure, he was the better defender than LeBron more often than not. Obviously, LeBron peaked as probably should have won DPOY in 2013, but Chris Bosh was that dude on defense, and then on offense, he was a perfect third piece. Again, he took 3 less shots per game, loosely adjusted his shot diet, and it bothers me. This take bothers me so much. It's weird that we can't just highlight like, hey, Chris Bosh was kind of a fun player when he was on the Toronto Raptors and he got to shoot the ball a little bit more. Instead, it has to be a criticism of LeBron. It has to be that LeBron took away from his game. It's just stupid. There's no context in which Chris Bosh, it could have been an entirely entirely different player. Like if he had to play with Carmelo Anthony and Kyrie Irving, or what, Carmelo Anthony and Allen Iverson, if you want to go a little bit later. Like either way, he was going to be reduced to a third option. Either way, he was going to have to change his shot diet to accommodate for the fact that he's not a first option. Because when you're a first option, you get first option shots. And then when you're a second option, you get second option shots. And when you're a third option, you get third option shots. Pretty obvious. It's pretty basic. But when you're trying to spin a narrative to criticize some other player that has nothing to do with Chris Bosh, well, there you go. It's pretty easy to do. Stupid post, stupid take, so devoid of context that it's actually painful. Ask Chris Bosh if he regrets taking 2.8 threes per game in his final season in exchange for 2 fucking championship rings. Give me a break.